This is Homeschooled, a podcast for the homeschool skeptics, diehards, the curious, and the discouraged. I'm your host, Jenève Dubé. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Homeschooled, Conversations with Alumni. We're with my very good friend, Becca Veale, not Cooney.
Not Cooney,
because you're married.
Married.
Yeah, you're married now.
3 years now.
You did it.
Boom.
Boom. There is hope. Can homeschoolers get married? Yes, it happens.
Yes, they
Becca
can.
is proof.
You are also soon to be proof.
Right? Getting there. I'm getting there.
Engaged.
All right. So quick intro about Becca. She was homeschooled through high school, like myself, in the North Jersey area. So we actually, that's how we know each other, through our homeschool group, NJHSA. After high school, she went to Kean University for 2 years before transferring to Rutgers, New Brunswick, at the Mason Gross School of the Arts. She graduated from there with a BFA in dance and a minor in psychology. And since graduating, Becca has taught dance to children ages 3 to 18, so all over the place, all of the children, and currently teaches Pilates in group and private sessions at several studios in North Jersey. So, hello, Becca.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. I think what's really great about getting a chance to interview, alumni from homeschooling experiences is that, like, everyone has a different kind of niche, and I love that a common thread, at least I know of you, is just like your athleticism, like just throughout.
That was the workout friend,
right? Your whole family was really active, and I know you were dancing for a long time. So, and the reason I want to bring you on here and chat about it more is because I think a lot of, parents considering homeschooling, that's a huge concern, is like activities or things beyond your curriculum and beyond your textbook and your basics, being able to do. So I'd love to talk to you about that more, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start with all the different things you did.
Okay. So I came from, also my parents were very athletic as well. So it's kind of like in our blood, I guess. And my parents played, various sports growing up and in college. So I think right away that was something that my dad and mom, like, just something they enjoyed. So they wanted to instill that in us and at least give us a chance to try different sports. So from an early age, even my older brothers, I remember going to like various soccer games for them, baseball practice, baseball games, all of that. So I started off with some soccer for a few years, got involved in that. We didn't do anything affiliated with like the public schools because of being homeschooled. So it's a lot of rec leagues in the town. I didn't really play for the town I grew up in. It was like various North Jersey towns, like, oh, this rec league, you can try this. Let's go over there. I played, soccer in Montclair. I did then eventually lacrosse, which I tried in Verona. I did dance in Maplewood. So it was all over the place. But I started off with soccer. I think I did lacrosse. And then I really, from a very young age, I also was dancing. So I did sports throughout, but my dancing time started when I was 4, and I went all the way up through high school and then college.
You were older when you started dance, basically.
Was like
4 years old.
Oh
my gosh.
For that, it's just,
I'm like coloring with crayons in my room. Yeah. Becca's doing ballet.
Well, did I know what I was doing then? You know what? And I actually remember my mom saying this. She's like, I started you off when you were not 2 or 3, because by the time you were 4 or 5, you could, memorize movement. And I wasn't just dancing around the room.
That's funny.
I will say I did know a little bit of what I was doing, but and then I also dabbled in, this was actually a homeschool sport. We had ultimate frisbee at one point that I was doing, and then eventually played that.
All the frisbee fans go wild.
I know. Woo! That, again, my older brothers played that. Even my younger brothers got into it at some point. So overall, the whole family was in some sport at some point. a decent amount of time.
Well, you just mentioned your brothers, so I'd love to
Yeah.
use this moment to just give us some context on your family and maybe just age differences,
Mhm.
maybe, that kind of stuff if you don't mind,
Of
just to
course.
give people an idea. Yeah.
So I am one of 5. I have 2 older brothers, 2 younger. Oh my gosh, the ages. So let's see, I think I am 6 years younger than my oldest, 4 years younger, than my second brother. My younger brother is only 2 years apart, and then 7 years from my oh my gosh, he's gonna hate me for
Yeah,
this. I think it's like 7 years from, my
it's
youngest
okay.
brother.
I can
So,
barely
well,
remember my siblings'
I
birthdays,
know.
so
We have a chart, so
we have a spreadsheet of everyone's birthday.
So, I would say we're, decent amount of years, between each other, but close enough where you don't feel like, "Oh, it's my long lost brother from 20 years
Yeah.
ago."
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned like lacrosse
Mhm.
and all these different things. When you say like rec stuff, is that like through like a boys and girls club, or did your mom have to kind of go seek those out and sign you up for those? Like, how did that work?
So, I believe I don't it wasn't any, like, boys and girls club or anything like that, but I believe my dad did have to, like, research and contact the rec departments for the towns. So, I
Okay.
think, because we were homeschooled, I could not participate in any high school sports.
Mm,
I believe that then applied for, like, the middle school sports and anything like basically anything with the public school, I wasn't
mm,
necessarily invited to be a part of that.
mm-hmm,
Um, so, yes, my dad did have to kinda go out of his way a little bit to research and get that information. I know
mm.
it's not necessarily hard, but it was just one extra step to do
Sure,
in order
sure.
for me to participate. So, they did have to do
Mm.
a little bit more. I couldn't just like, I didn't get some sort of advertisement in our
Right.
mailbox
So
saying,
like,
"Hey, join
oh,
this club." Yeah.
easy
They
peasy.
had to do a
Yeah.
little bit, and actually, there wasn't really much on the internet at that time, so there's a lot of work involved here.
You're like, wow,
Well,
you're
I'm
gonna go
old.
call your parents after this. Thank you for
Thank you
writing
for
a
going above
letter
and
to
beyond.
the. Yeah.
Um, and so that was a part that they had to do. I know also at some point, other homeschool friends of ours were part of their town. They were also involved in the ultimate frisbee family around there. So we kind of word of mouth got pulled in that way as well.
Mm.
So
When you say, like, you can't get into high school sports, I know people that really wanna get into professional
Mhm.
sports, that is still a downside,
So
but
difficult.
that wasn't as much of a focus for you guys. It was more
So
just, like, trying to be active, or did you ever want
yeah,
that?
I mean, for me, I really, really loved playing lacrosse, and I remember I got to 8th grade, and I was kind of done. Like, there was no options,
Mm.
unfortunately, um,
Mm.
at the time for me to continue, but also that was when I think I was getting much more serious with my dance, training, um,
Mm.
or I just wanted to be more involved there. So I did make a decision, and I remember thinking like, "Okay, do I really wanna pursue lacrosse and, like, we'll have to kind of jump through some hoops or figure this out, or am I gonna commit to dance?" Because as I got older, I had more classes, more rehearsals, practices
Mm.
overlapped with the rehearsals, so it was a lot of, like, I need to make a decision at some point and what will work as I got older.
Mhm.
So, I did not see myself playing professional sport. I really loved and enjoyed dancing, so I chose that route.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
the dance studio, as I'm sure most listeners will know, like they have after school programs at the studio. So it wasn't something affiliated with a school. It was separate. It was a studio outside of that.
Right. So
So,
that felt, did you feel a little bit more, like, welcome in that environment too, maybe? Because it's just like it's not like, "What
um,
school are you from?" Or
yeah, I
it's
mean, and
just
I
kinda
guess,
like, "You're a student here."
yeah, that was the studio. I went to one of the studio for I think a year or two when I was young, and then I was always at that studio. So I kind of grew up there.
That's
So
cool.
I always felt like a family there. I never really felt out of place. All of my
Mm.
friends there, except I mean, there's a whole nother layer to that where we had like a homeschool hour that we created or that I created, but another family friend
Mhm.
did. And so I even the after school kids that I was a part of in class, like we just grew up together. So it wasn't weird at all that I was
Mm.
homeschooled and they weren't because we all
Cool.
just came to dance together. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I just wanna go on a little tangent here
Mhm.
because
Yes,
you
yes,
mentioned friends,
yes.
um, and that's just I think you and I always chuckle when we get that question, like, how
Mhm.
did you make friends?
Yeah.
And you just gave a bunch of examples where you meet other kids and you
Mhm.
become friends. Like, that's just what happens when you hang out and you're not necessarily like in the same exact grade or at the same school.
Mhm.
And I love calling that out because it's like you had, I hesitate to use this word, but like exposure to kids
Mhm.
that were in public school.
All the time.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. What was that like for you?
I don't remember ever feeling like the oddball. Like, I never remember feeling like, "Ooh, I'm not a part of them. They go to public school." I
Mm,
don't know if this was at the time because I was younger and it wasn't associating like, "Oh, I'm homeschooled, they're not." Like, to me, it was just always normal, um, and it wasn't something weird that I'm like, "Oh, I don't really know all of their friends." Like, I just made friends with them right away. Like,
mhm,
we are all part of the same team, like, we're working together. That
mm,
never felt awkward, and even them knowing that, I never felt weird about sharing that. So I nowadays, maybe it might be different, but at the time, like, I just felt perfectly normal. I was like, "Yeah, this is I'm homeschooled," but, maybe because it was a rec league, so it wasn't necessarily tied to schools,
mm,
that I
okay,
didn't feel like there was this, umbrella that I wasn't a part of that they were. So,
okay, yeah,
yeah,
that's a
but as
good
a kid, I
point.
I really never felt like, "Ooh, I'm missing out," like, they're part of the public school, and then they get to go to the sport that I just happened to tag on at the very end of the day,
Mm,
like, no, I felt really fine, and I didn't notice any, like, cliques or anything like that. It was again, I am the type of person who would just kind of, like, go with the flow with the group and, like, hang out and talk, so
yeah,
I mean, I was shy, I wasn't gonna be, like, all up in your face until I knew you,
right,
but I think I wanted to play the sports, so I made it work. Even if
yeah,
it was a little weird, I was like, "No, I wanna be here because I wanna play."
right,
So
and then you have a shared goal just
mhm.
immediately when you're on a team.
We're all
It's
doing
not
the
just
drills
like
together. We're
yeah,
all sweating together. We're all, doing everything together, so nothing was
yeah,
standoffish or hard to
mm,
work with.
mm.
But and on top of that, then we had, all of our homeschool activities that I was very much involved in, so meeting people was happening all the time.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't need to be different unless someone makes it weird, and
Mhm,
I think as long as and especially I know your disposition is a positive
mhm,
energy in general, and I don't think you walk into things being, like, tentative and,
mhm,
like, self-conscious, so it's like you come in, you're like, "I am who I am," um, even at a young age, and I think that's I don't not to be overlooked because I think a lot of homeschool kids that at least the ones I know, like yourself, like,
mhm.
we're kinda like, "No big deal, that doesn't really phase
Yeah.
me as much because 'cause you're not used to needing to compare yourself that often anyway." Um, I don't know,
I
at least
think a
that
lot
was
of
my
that comes from
experience.
also I had a very unique, I think, homeschool experience as well because I had 2 really close families nearby with lots of kids who were also homeschooled.
Mm,
So, we weren't like the homeschool family that was, like, 45 minutes from everyone else. So,
mm,
I was constantly over people's houses, but they were also homeschooled and they grew up to be some of my closest friends. So there was a lot of interaction that way where I don't know about you, like being maybe not so close to some people or down the street from someone where you had to make the time or your parents had to drive you. So I had a lot more
right.
flexibility and just seeing people and
Yeah.
my friends all the time.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that switch you made from lacrosse to
Mhm.
choosing dance. And
Mhm.
then clearly that took you through college and
Mhm.
you continued to pursue dance except from a teaching perspective outside of that. And I know college is like this big moment for a lot of homeschoolers
Mhm.
because it's like really the only time you're finding your place in like the
Mhm.
real, you
What it's
know,
like to go to school, real
yeah,
school.
like this
Yeah, totally.
standard education system.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you're open to talking a little bit about your journey getting to Mason Gross and your
Mhm.
experience there, would be
Yeah,
awesome.
so making that mental note, like, okay, this dance is something I want to pursue. Even at the time in high school, I wasn't like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. Like, this is what I want to major in. I had no clue what I
Mm.
wanted to do. I was just having fun,
Like
living,
any of us.
living my best life as I could. I
Yeah.
wanted to be at the dance studio like all the time. And that was just something I enjoyed and loved to do.
Mm.
when I graduated, I actually continued still to dance at the studio. Typically, once you graduate, you're kind of like either I was
When you
actually
graduated high school,
when I
you're
graduated
saying?
high school, yeah.
Okay.
I was actually local. Kean was a in-state university, so I was commuting, and so I could do that. Some people just once they graduate, they're kind of gone out of the studio. So a little unique, I guess, that way as well. And for 2 years, then I was going to Kean and also still dancing at the studio. I was undecided at Kean for those 2 years. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved everything I did, and this is not to toot my horn, but it was just like I made it work. Like
Mhm.
I did what I need to do, and people were like, "Yeah, you're really good at this. You should try this, or you should
Mhm.
major in this." And I was like, "I don't really know where I fit in." Like, sure,
Mhm.
I like psychology. I don't know if I want to become, a therapist. And I know there's a lot more range to
Of
that
course.
major, of
Yeah,
course.
but that's
Like,
how you're thinking when you're
yeah,
when
at the
you're a
time, I'm like,
freshman or
"Oh, I don't
yeah.
know where to go." So, 2 years I was there, and then one of my, good friends growing up as well, who was a homeschooler, she was dancing with me at the studio. She was going to be graduating high school and was going to be auditioning, for Rutgers or the Mason Gross dance department, and I was like, "Yep, that's what I'm gonna do with you." And long story short, lots of prayers and just things fell into place, and God totally orchestrated that moment. But
Mm.
I ended up getting in with her, and we were going together as freshmen into the dance department. And I felt at that moment, I was like, okay, this is like what I should be doing. I felt really good about it. I was obviously nervous. This is a whole new kind of world thinking like, all right, I'm going to college for dance. Like that's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Way more
I
serious. Like
yeah, yeah, and I wasn't just doing like, I had to take some academic classes as well, but I was gonna be moving, like, for my major, so I thought
Mhm.
that was really exciting, and to do that, as well with a friend of mine was really encouraging and, kind of had each other's back in the beginning, so that was a awesome experience, but
Yeah.
it was let's see, going from high school then to Kean, some people are like, "Oh my gosh, how was that first day?" Well, the first day, my mom actually drove me because I did not leave
That's
enough
so
time.
cute.
I did not leave enough time because I was like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna drive and find a spot." Little did I know, when you go to college now, you need to arrive like 30 minutes, 40 minutes to find a parking spot on campus. And my mom was like, you're not like, we need to take you because you're not gonna get a spot."
She's like,
I was like,
let me
"Oh,
help
yeah."
you out here."
I was nervous, but at the same time, I seemed to be very chill about that and just did not know that that was a thing. Um,
Yeah.
so nothing was ever like, "Oh my god, I'm so nervous, like, this is a lot of people." I never felt necessarily overwhelmed. I
Mm.
was more excited about it.
Mm.
And little fun fact, my both of my parents actually, met at Kean University or Kean
Oh,
College
there
at
you
the
go.
time. So they knew the campus. They were, like, telling me all about it. So I kind of had that underneath me already.
Yeah.
Um, but I never felt like, I don't know, out of place or like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do." I thought it was exciting. I'm like,
Mhm.
this is a big campus for me at the time because 'cause I've never been on one, and I
Mm.
thought it was cool that I had different rooms to walk to and buildings and different professors, so I enjoyed that, and,
Mm.
um, I actually, surprised my parents in how well I did.
Oh my gosh, that's so sad.
More because
They're like,
I
"Wow."
just wanted to be, like, active, like,
Yeah.
I didn't like school per se, I wanted to just be doing activities and, I
Mhm.
like sciencey things, but I didn't see myself ever majoring in some sort of academic type of, uh,
Mm, so you like
subject.
excelling in those kinds of subjects
Yeah,
was, like,
so all
surprising.
the extracurricular activities, the sports were something I just loved doing, so
Mm,
that was a little fun thing, but I think I
that's
greatly
cool.
enjoyed being in a classroom. I did enjoy, learning from professors and all of that, so moving then from there to Rutgers, it was actually a pretty different vibe because now I wasn't sitting down in a lecture hall with 300 kids. I was or
Mm,
kids, adults at the time, I
eh,
guess. And
eh.
we weren't really
I'd call them kids.
kids. Then
Adults.
transitioning from that to going back to, a dance studio at 8 AM,
Mm,
it wasn't necessarily, again, something, like, overwhelming, it was just like, "Oh, okay, now this is what I'm doing." So, yeah, it was a challenging, I'll say, like, first year at Rutgers because 'cause you're dancing, a million hours a day now, and your body's just exhausted, and then you also maybe have to take 1 or 2 classes. Um,
mhm.
so there's a little bit of a learning curve there, but overall I thought it was smooth. I don't think, you know,
Yeah.
anything upset me in the college world transitioning from high school to college.
Yeah. I think I mean, maybe it's not, but it sounds like it's unique to be able to go to college and study the same major with another homeschooled friend.
Yeah.
So, did you both experience like new things together, or do you think that friendship helped you through certain things that
Oh,
were like
yeah.
things that came up?
Yeah, I would say again, it was kind of the way I guess the events came into place, totally a God thing because I don't know if I would have ever thought, "Oh, I'll go 2 years and just wait for you to get out of high school, and then we'll do this, like, together for 4 years."
Mm, mhm,
It was almost like it was just little building steps that or building blocks, excuse me, that I had to, have, and then we were gonna make it together. But I think
mhm,
overall, it did really strengthen, our friendship, and we were doing new things together. If we were nervous about something, we at least had each other right away. We weren't making a new friend and having to, bond that way. We had that foundation. So I
mhm,
certainly think that that helped us together as friends. And it was nice knowing, oh, she's got me and I got her like at this moment in the studio, like, or
mhm.
wherever we were. I also, fun fact, dormed basically at her parents' house down there because Rutgers was a little bit
Nice.
farther than Kean was for me, so it was definitely a trip, but then we got to, carpool together certain times, so
Mm,
it was a really fun experience, and if I didn't have her, or have even that her family there, like, I don't know if it would have been as easy or if I would have even
mm,
chosen to do that because
mm.
it seemed kind of something like kind of in the back burner, like, yeah, oh, I know that's school, but I don't know if that's something I would do. And I don't know why, but I guess at the time
Yeah,
I knew I wanted to dance, but I didn't necessarily think, oh, I'll go like major in this and this become a degree for me. Like I just didn't think of that at the time.
right,
So it wasn't
right.
until I had that little push and I basically had to decide if what my major was at Kean that made me be like, oh, actually, I don't want to be here. Like
Yeah.
I need to go on to bigger and better things. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that
I
answers
mean, I love
your
when that happens, like, when someone kind of just yes, I don't know how to put it, but, like, makes it a reality, like, makes it an
question.
actual thing because it's easy to, like, talk about possibilities, like, these big far away things,
Mhm.
and it sounds like your friend was like, "I'm going and doing this, and this is how it's going for me," you know what I mean? Like, or, "This is gonna be my approach to it," and
Yeah.
then you can actually put yourself in that mode, right? Because 'Cause you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I could do that too," you know? Like,
Yeah. And
um
I can't speak for her, but I think I don't know if she had necessarily reservations, about it, but I remember her telling me, like, having this moment where I was still waiting to hear back from them, and she already got accepted in, and she was just like, "Alright, God, like, if she doesn't make it, I'm not going." And I was like, "Whoa, girl, like, you can't do that. Like,
aw,
you got in, like, you need to go pursue this."
loyalty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we just kind of had that, I guess, mindset of, like, we're gonna do this together, and whatever
Mhm,
happens, I feel like this is where we're gonna go. So,
mm,
it was a moment where like, "Alright, she's doing it, I'm gonna hop on board with her and do it."
mm.
So,
That's so cool.
yeah.
That's awesome. So, from all that experience in
Mhm.
dance and studying dance, you decided to teach little kids.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
that's been a fun journey.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
what was that transition for you? Did you feel like teaching came naturally to you?
I would say because I was teaching, some sort of genre of dance, whereas it's ballet, tap, jazz, something like that, that I grew up doing already. And even at the studio that I was dancing at in high school and earlier years, I actually became like they had the student assistants. So
Mm,
you're kind of there helping out. So I had a little bit of that. Was I teaching class? No, not necessarily. But
you
while
have
I was
some
at
kind of leadership
yeah, yeah. And
role-ish.
even while I was at Kane, I was subbing sometimes at different studios. So
Mm,
the idea of teaching a dance class didn't really seem like this, hard thing to do. Like I knew how a dance class was run and or how I wanted to do warm-ups and across the floors and whatever combination. So that came very naturally just from being a dancer. I don't know if I really don't know if the teaching element um was more natural because of just
You're like,
homeschooling,
kids
like
be
it's
cray.
hitting it. Yeah. I don't
And that's
know.
okay. Yeah.
I wonder if it really I think just because I knew dance my whole life, and that was just something I did and I subbed in, that it really became more natural that way. Um,
Mm,
what I will say is teaching younger kids, because I know it's not for everyone, and I know some people have like,
yeah.
"Ooh, I like teaching this age group." I will say having siblings definitely, I think, helped with that, and having,
Siblings.
nieces and nephews, from a younger age that I was babysitting, like, that most certainly played a part in teaching the younger age group of, our little
Mm.
little dancers. I wasn't at all nervous to teach, 15, 3, and 5-year-olds, because I'm like, "Well, we're just gonna keep the ball rolling, and whatever happens, happens, and
Yeah.
we're just gonna make it work." So I
Yeah.
think I think that's the element that did come a little bit more easily to me because of having a larger family, having, nieces and nephews to
Mm.
work and play with, and almost parent in a way, like, because,
Yeah.
when you're watching them. So I took that, I think, a little bit and brought that into the studio with my, younger dancers for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if that's an expectation, like, that's not
Hmm.
always helpful of like, "Ah, you could probably teach," like, and then you're like,
No,
"Actually,
that's true.
this is a lot."
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree, because you think, or some people sometimes think, you're exposed to all of that your whole life. Like, "Oh, your mom must be an excellent teacher." And you're like, "Well, like, sometimes yes, sometimes no." Like, and
Mhm.
sometimes maybe that the kid, they really like learning on their own, and then but they don't really like teaching, but they like really doing it by themselves. So you
Mm.
see that displayed, I guess, as they get older in different ways, but it doesn't necessarily mean like you're going to be an amazing instructor because
Right.
you grew up homeschooled. Not
Right.
really.
That not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know we touched on a little bit of this already, but what would you recommend for currently homeschooling parents, maybe of younger kids or middle schoolers, like of how to start or get involved in a local sport?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is just, go to like a town website and see if they do have any, rec leagues. That would be the
Hmm.
easiest thing. Or if you know of anyone else who plays a sport, maybe from another town, you can always chat with them. But I would say the biggest thing
Mm,
would be, first, just look at your town and see what they have available to you. And then go to the next town and next town over and see if they have opportunities in different rec leagues. They sometimes, I think, maybe it's not like a league or a sport that you can join, but they have classes at night that you might be able to do.
mm, hmm.
If they are looking to go into, again, a sport, that would probably be your best option. I would say for a dance, you can, always Google your local dance studio, and most classes at a dance
Mm,
studio are after school hours. So
right.
most likely they'll follow, the public school holidays and times that way. So your classes will be after hours or school
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, that's a
So
great
just keep
point.
that
Like
in
a
mind.
specific thing. Yeah.
Yeah, keep that in mind, and I'm assuming that nowadays, like, weekends would probably be your busiest time for sports, and
Right.
practices. It might be during the week as well, but who knows?
When as you were talking, I just remembered growing up, I think like there was a what do you call it? It's not a gym, like a traditional gym, like where gymnasts learn gymnastics, like a gymnastics
Yes.
studio or
Okay.
something. Like a parent would go to the gym and say, "Hey, I have like 3 friends, like combined, like I don't know, 10 kids or
Mhm.
something." That's
That's
homeschoolers for
yeah,
you. Yeah.
that's
I
what I
have
remember.
about, we basically have a homeschool group. We would love to have like a homeschool gym
Yeah.
class,
Mhm.
and I have heard some places like really being open to that because it's an advantage for them because they get to maximize their space
Mhm.
during school hours, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of places like dance studios are like super packed or booked or whatever, and the after school hours. So that's something to consider too. And that goes for like that art things. I don't know why I'm
I
talking
don't
about
know.
art when we're
No,
talking
but
about
I
sports, but
remember that too. Like, my older brothers did some sort of art class with someone because they had, like, 3 or 4 families, and they weren't necessarily homeschooled, the instructors, but they were just like, "Yeah, we got this group. You wanna teach some art?"
yeah. Yeah.
"Here."
You wanna teach some kids at
Yeah,
noon,
yeah. So,
Yeah.
I had that, and I mean, even at the dance studio I grew up in, the owner at the time, she had a homeschool, like, class time. So I started going to that actually versus,
Mm.
well, I did both, but I would go to that and then I'd have my after school classes. But we had this homeschool group of students and we did, our ballet, our tap, but it was
Yeah.
at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 2 p.m., whereas our
Yeah.
after school hour classes wouldn't start till 5 or 4:30.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you might be surprised actually even asking, like there might be things available already
Right.
that are
That's a
open.
great point that they just don't advertise
Yeah, they
because,
don't advertise
like
it because it might be a little bit, a smaller group or whatever, but they may
Mhm.
very well have it already going on.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, final question, Becca, before we wrap this up.
Yes, yes.
Um, what is one thing you wish everyone knew about homeschooling?
That is
You
so
can think
hard.
about it.
I mm, you're gonna get a lot of weird sound effects here. I
This
mean,
is the moment where I
overall,
say, "Go to the video version so you can watch all of Becca's
see all of my
faces."
facial expressions. Um, I would say number 1, it does require, and what I saw, a decent amount of work from the parents, themselves. The
Mhm.
kids, especially
Mm.
when they're younger, they're not they're not pulling their curriculums together. So, if you make the decision to homeschool, like, just know that it'll be work on your part. It's not like, "Oh, I set a book in front of them and they can do it." No, it's a
Mhm.
definitely work, and my experience was good because of my parents.
Mm.
And maybe were there some things that I wanted to do, but they chose, we're not going to do that route and you're going to do this. But I think no matter what I was doing, I had a really good time in the sports I did, in the rec activities that I did. So I
Mm.
do applaud my parents for giving me those options. And
Mm.
I also say that it may depend a little bit on your location and your parents and your situation, but
Of
I
course.
was very much open to a lot of possibilities in activities, choir, drama, sports again, and all of these things, they were available. So as a
Mhm.
homeschooler, I wasn't alone at home. Like there's so much more to homeschooling than just being at home
Mm.
and schooling. Just like it is with, a public school kid. Like you don't just be like, "Oh, what did you do?" Like public school, you just sit in school and learn. There's so
Mhm.
many clubs and activities that you have. Same
Mhm.
thing goes for homeschooling. Like
Mhm.
it just is like, what do you make of it? What are you gonna do with that time? Are you gonna just really make your kids sit at home and that's all you're gonna do? Or are you gonna try and go above and
Yeah.
beyond to make that experience just as cool as it is for any other kid in school?
Mm. Yeah, it is really what you make it, and especially when it comes to, like, activities and rec sports and all of that, it does take effort from the parents,
Mhm.
and I think that's awesome that your parents made that happen for you pre-internet.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know how he did it, but we
your
were in
dad's probably
pocket.
like, "Yeah, just go on the internet," and you're like, "Yeah, all I
So
gotta do, 2 clicks, bada
yeah,
bing,
now I
bada
know. He had to, like, ride his bike to the town hall.
boom."
Bring the paperwork for actually, it might have been something like that. I really don't
Yeah,
know. Like,
honestly.
might have had to go to town hall to get some.
You should go ask him, and
I
we're gonna
probably should.
ask you for
Like,
an
what's
update.
the details?
Yeah, get the deets. Next episode, next time you're a guest, we'll touch base on that. What did your dad have to do? Anyway, it was so awesome having you, Becca. Thank you for your time,
Of course.
um, and your friendship, and I hope a lot of people get a lot out of this and can, be inspired to find activities
Mhm.
for their kids in their local area too. So,
Definitely.
thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you found this episode helpful or inspiring or not, I'd love to hear about it. Email me at thehomeschoolpod@gmail.com. Are you interested in being a guest? Let's chat. Apply today at www.solo.to/homeschooled to complete a quick online application. Have a great day. Don't forget to drink your water, and I'll talk to you soon.